Have you ever felt like you were carrying the world on your back, even without knowing exactly why? As if each day brought an invisible weight, confusing thoughts, obligations you did not choose, too much voices around you opting for your life. Perhaps what is missing is no more effort, more answers, or more achievements. Perhaps what is missing be silence. Yes, the silence. That rare and powerful state where we can really hear ourselves, where we can identify what it serves and what only takes up space, where it becomes possible to eliminate in a serene, firm, and unveiled way everything that drains our energy. In this video, you will find out how silence can be a key of freedom and clarity. Get ready for a journey where you will learn to move away from comparisons that undermine your self-esteem, toxic relationships that suck your peace, and even your own self-destructive thoughts. It's not about running away from the world, it's about filtering what is really worth keeping inside it. Let's dive into stories, reflections, and practices inspired by Stoic philosophy and emotional minimalism. You will be surprised at how much you can change without having to make noise. After all, true power does not scream, he whispers. But beware, this video is not for those who are afraid to change. It is for those who are tired of living in automatic and really wants to start living in peace. Because sometimes the greatest revolution begins when we choose the right silence. Reflection on excess in life. Elena was a simple fisherman from a seaside village. On an ordinary day, an unexpected storm formed while she was still in the middle of the ocean. With the small boat being thrown by the waves, she realized that she needed to get rid of everything that was not essential to survive. Net, boxes, fishing objects, everything went to the sea. And the more it relieved the boat, the more it gained stability. This story reminds us that we are often sinking not by the strength of the waves, but by the excessive luggage we insist on carrying. These are commitments that no longer make sense, stressful relationships, thoughts that take up too much space in the head. And the most curious? None of this is essential. The problem is that we only realize this when the storm comes. Stoic philosophy teaches us that inner peace begins when we stop accumulating what we do not need, and that includes unreal expectations, desires made by others, and the constant fear of judgment. Elena didn't have to scream to survive. She only eliminated, silently, which threatened her life. And perhaps this is the key: learning to eliminate in silence. How many times, for fear of displeasing, keep things, people, and habits that have already lost their value? We got the boat too full, with no room to breathe, navigate, or just exist. Sometimes courage is to let go without justifying, without explaining, without dramatizing. Just let go. Like Elena in the storm. Elena arrived on the coast with the light, wet, exhausted boat, but alive. And that's how many people come to their own liberation, a little lighter, perhaps tired, but with their soul in peace. The secret? It was not the strength. It was the choice. The choice to release what was no longer sense. What could you release today without needing a storm to force you? Start by watching your routine. Is there any weight that you have been carrying too much time? A job that no longer represents you? A social obligation that you meet by habit, not willingly? Small decisions can bring great reliefs. Excess is not a sign of wealth. Often, it's just confusion disguised as necessity. This first step, silent and firm, makes room for the next reflection. Why do we still give so much power to the opinion of others? Why does the fear of judgment still dictate so many of our choices? This is what we will explore now. Fear of the opinion of others. Have you stopped doing something for fear of what they would think? Perhaps you have refused an opportunity, changing your way of dressing, or even silenced a sincere opinion just to avoid the judgment of others. This is more common than it seems. We live surrounded by external voices, and we often let them stuff our own. The truth is that the fear of judgment is an invisible imprisonment. It keeps you from acting authenticity and puts you in an eternal attempt to please. Stoic philosophy proposes a powerful liberation. Focus on what you can control, and you can't control what others think. Simple as that. It seems obvious, but how many times have we forgotten this? Imagine a scene: you are on stage, and each person on the audience has an approval button. Now think, is worth living trying to press all these buttons at the same time? Impossible, isn't it? And even if you get it for a moment, just slide for everything back to the beginning. Peace comes when you realize that the most important button, it's yours. This need for validation is born of an insecurity that is often not yours. It may have come from childhood, from family comparisons, from the school. But today, you can already choose what you want to keep. When someone judges you, in fact, is revealing more about yourself than about you. And silence is the best answer to this kind of noise. The fear of judgment makes us actors on the very stage of life. We act, smile, agree, and run out. But living in peace requires the courage to be real, even if it bothers you. A good exercise is, before making a decision, ask yourself, is that for me or others? This simple question can change your directions. Try to be silent when you expect you to react, or give a calm answer where you would once explain too much. This kind of attitude disarms the approval game. And over time, you realize that people who really matter do not require masks. They welcome their essence. In the end, it is not about completely ignoring the opinion of others. It's about not being guided by her. When you make peace with your own truth, external judgment loses strength. And then there is room to deal with another hidden weight of life: toxic relationships. Let's talk about it now. Toxic relationships. Not every toxic relationship is noisy. Sometimes it comes disguised as ancient friendship, a family bond, a helpful colleague. But you feel every meeting leaves strange tiredness, an inexplicable malaise, as if something was being sucked from you. Even without a fight, no scream. And this also needs to be eliminated. The idea is not to go out breaking ties with scandal. Stoic teaching proposes something more subtle and powerful: to get away in silence. Without long explanations, without attempts to convince the other. Just move toward your peace. After all, your energy is too valuable to be drained by those who do not respect their limits. Toxic relationships do not arise from nothing. They gradually build themselves through small invasions, disguised manipulations, emotional blackmail. A friend who always diminishes you joking, a family member who only appears to criticize, a partner who requires everything but offers little. And the more you give in, the more the cycle strengthens. You don't have to turn it into a scandal. The secret is the change in behavior. Reduce contact, stop sharing everything, do not get involved in predictable discussions. Gradually, the relationship loses strength. And most importantly, you recover internal space to nurture healthy bonds. Maybe you are guilty of moving away from someone who has always been around. But being around does not mean doing well. There is a difference between presence and support, between coexistence and connection. You should not loyalty to pain, only to your truth. And this truth, sometimes, asks for distance. Try reflecting who inspires you to grow, who really hears you, who respects your limits without making you feel selfish. These are the people who deserve place in your life. The rest can follow another way, even if it is silent. And don't be surprised, silence sometimes speaks louder than 1,000 justifications. When you break free from these harmful connections, something within you reorganizes, as if the soul breathed better. But there are still silent enemies that are not out, but within us. One of them is self-destructive habits, and that's what we'll talk about now. Self-destructive habits. You have noticed how some habits come into our life slowly, without fuss, and when we realize. Are you already in control? Opening the mobile phone without purpose, rolling social networks late, watching content that adds nothing. It seems harmless, but these behaviors drain focus, self-esteem, and vital energy. The problem is not on the cell phone itself, nor to rest with a light video. The problem is excessive, automatic, in addiction to the easy click. As Stoic philosophy invites us to question, is this approaching who I want to be? Or are you just distracting myself from myself? The answer often scares. Changing self-destructive habits does not require revolutions. Requires silent constancy. Change 15 minutes of rolling for 15 pages of a good book. How about starting with Ryan Holiday's Ego Is? Or listen to an inspiring podcast instead of diving into random videos. Small exchanges build major changes. The key is in consciousness. When you catch yourself doing something on autopilot, stop and ask, does it do me good or just occupy me? The simple act of observing already begins to dissolve the standard. And no, you don't have to punish yourself for slips. You just need to go back again and again until the new habit becomes stronger. We often use these habits as an escape anxiety, boredom, dissatisfaction with life. But each time we ran away, we increased the abyss between who we are and who we could be. Looking at it hurts, but also frees it. Because when you see the pattern, you have a choice. Take the test, choose a single habit that consumes you. Maybe sleep too late for staying on your phone, and change this moment for something simple. Write in a notebook, meditate 5 minutes, hear your own silence. At first it looks little, but this little changes everything. Silently, you strengthen yourself. And when you begin to strengthen yourself, you realize how much you tried to control everything around to feel safe. This desire to control people, situations, results is the next obstacle we need to learn to release. Desire to control everything. The truth is that, often, anxiety is born of this desperate need for control. We want to ensure that everything goes out as planned, that people react the right way, that the day follows without unforeseen events, that life obeys our script. But life, loves improvising. Stoic philosophy brings almost immediate relief. You don't have to control everything, you just need to learn to react wisely to what happens. It sounds simple, but it is a daily exercise. You do not control traffic, but you can control your reaction to traffic jam. It does not control the criticism, but you can choose if it will hurt you. Living trying to control the world is like trying to hold sand with your hands. The more strength you do, the more it escapes. It is an effort that tires, frustrates, and, in the end, solves nothing. On the other hand, focus on what depends on you. Your attitudes, your habits, your look give you the power. The real power. Want a practical example? Make a list of everything that worries you today. Then divide it into 2 columns, what you can control and what you can't. Then choose to act only on what is within your reach. This simple practice is already beginning to relieve the weight of the world on the back. The desire to control everything is actually disguised fear. Fear of making mistakes, of being disappointed, of not realizing it. But living trying to avoid all possible pain is the same as preventing all good surprises. Total control may seem security, but in practice, it is an invisible imprisonment. Begin to observe when you get annoyed or distressed. Is it because you are trying to control something that does not depend on you? This question is gold. It can interrupt stress cycles and make room for something lighter. Release is not giving up. It is trusting. It is making room for life to surprise you too. And when releasing, you break free from invisible pressures. Even the unreal expectations we often put on ourselves or accept to put it. That's what we'll talk about now. Unreal expectations. Do you know that feeling of constant frustration, as if you were never doing enough, being good enough, or going fast enough? Often it is born from the unreal expectations we carry, and the worst, without even realizing it. Expectations that are most often not ours. They come from the family, society, social networks. It is as if there is an invisible primer saying that until such age you need to have a diploma, a successful career, a stable relationship, a home of its own, an ideal body. Few. Who wrote these rules? And why do we still follow them in automatic? Stoic philosophy proposes a break, an honest introspection. Which of these expectations really make sense to you? What are otherwise projections you accepted without question? When you start filtering it, you realize that many charges that weighed you have never really been yours. A good exercise is to write your current goals and, next to each one, write down the reason behind it. If the answer is because everyone does or because they expect it from me, maybe it's time to review. Healthy expectations are born of self-knowledge, not comparison, and they free instead of choking. This review also reduces the fear of failure, because if you pursue an unreal expectation, any result seems little. But when the goal is true, each step becomes victory. The focus comes out of the unattainable ideal and returns to real progress, one that respects his rhythm, time, and essence. Try to exchange strict expectations for light commitments to yourself. Instead of "I need to be promoted in 6 months," how about "I will continually develop in what I love to do"? This language change already reduces anxiety and reconnects you with your own journey. And when you start walking without the weight of imposed expectations, you also feel less inclined to argue, to prove something all the time. The peace of simply listening, of not having to overcome debates arises. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now: the need to always be right. Need to always be right. You already got it arguing, even knowing that the conversation would not take anywhere just to prove a point. This compulsion to be right seems innocent, but drains energy, wears out relationships, and feeds the ego instead of wisdom. The truth is that, often, silence is worth more than reason. Stoic philosophy does not preach passivity, but discernment. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every different opinion is a threat. Learning to listen, without the hurry of rebutting, is a powerful and liberating skill. Stoic doesn't have to win the discussion. He prefers to beat himself. Try to remember a recent conversation that made you angry. Now think, has your answer brought peace or just fed the conflict? Many times, we insist on being right because we confuse this with value. But the real value is calm, listening, self-control in the face of chaos. A good exercise is training the break. Before answering, breathe. Evaluate if it's worth it. If your silence is more constructive than your words, choose silence. This is not submission, it is strategic wisdom. It is, as they say, who has peace need not be right all the time. This constant need to overcome arguments is often linked to insecurity. It is as if we need to prove it all the time that we are intelligent, coherent, strong. But the safest people we know are usually the ones who speak the least and watch more. Allow yourself to leave a conversation without having to give the last word. And if someone insists on provoking you, try smiling and say, "You may be right." Just that. No argument will be more elegant, because true power is to keep calm while the other loses his. And when you begin to master this inner silence, you realize how noisy the outer world is, especially the digital universe. The next stage of our journey is to deal with this excess virtual noise that invades our mind daily. Digital noise. Have you told how many notifications you receive per day? And how many times take the phone just to take a look, and when you realize it's been 40 minutes? Digital noise makes no noise in the ear, but screams inside the mind. It fragments attention, feeds comparisons, and weakens the connection with the present. The problem is not technology itself, it is unbridled, automatic, almost hypnotic use. It is the fear of losing something, the famous FOMO, which makes us check all the time. And the more information we consume, the less we can hear our own voice. The inner silence is replaced by incessant external stimuli. The proposal here is not disappearing from the internet, but filtering. Make a digital cleaning. Start by cleaning your net. Stop following those who make you anxious, frustrated, or in constant comparison. Silence notifications that do not serve you. Reduce screen time. Use technology as a tool, not a handcuff. Try to create small rituals of digital silence. How about starting the day away from the phone? Or turn off Wi-Fi an hour before bed. In doing so, you send a message to yourself: my peace is worth more than any feed. And believe me, the world won't end if you don't answer a message on time. There is something magical in allowing silence to inhabit your daily life. It is in it that the best ideas, the most conscious decisions, the true self-knowledge arise. And this is only possible when the mind is no longer bombarded by content that only occupies, but do not transform. Try writing down as you feel after a morning without social networks, or after walking without headphones, only with your thoughts. You will realize that silence is not empty, it is full of answers. But we need to make room for them to manifest. And when this clarity begins to appear, the mind becomes more able to deal with another insistent visitor: negative thoughts. They arrive sneaky, and, if we do not pay attention, take over. It is about them that we will talk now. Negative thoughts. They arrive without knocking on the door. A poorly interpreted comment, a reminder of the past, a catastrophic prediction of the future. And that's it. There is negative thinking. He disguises himself as reality, but it is often just a pessimistic hypothesis dressed in absolute truth. The first step is simple but powerful: observe thought as if it were from someone else. Question: is this a fact or assumption? Do I have tests, or am I just feeding fear? This distance allows you to realize not everything your mind says is reliable. She speaks, but you choose if you hear. Imagine your mind like a garden. Each thought is a seed. When you feed a negative idea, even for a few minutes, you are watering a weed. And the problem is not thinking bad once. It is thinking this every day, several times. This is where the bush grows and chokes the flowers. So the next time you think, "I'm a failure," or "nothing works out for me," try to exchange for "this is just a phase," or "I'm learning from it." It may seem forced at first, but over time, these new seeds begin to sprout, and the garden changes. Silence is also a tool in this process. Instead of reacting automatically to all bad thinking, practice to be silent for a few seconds. Note, take a deep breath, and choose how to answer. This interval, however small, is where freedom lives. Books such as The Morning Miracle or The Power of the Now offer great exercises to break these mental cycles. One is to write your negative thoughts on paper, and next door, write down what you would say to a friend who was thinking that. You will be surprised by the compassion that is born from there. When the mind begins to organize, we naturally feel like organizing what is out our room, our table, our environment. There is a deep connection between the internal order and the external order. And that's exactly what we're going to address now. Physical and mental disorder. Have you tried to work at a table full of papers, glasses, and mess? or sleep in a disorganized room. It is no coincidence that at these times the mind seems as agitated as the environment. What is out influenced what is inside and vice versa. Physical disorder is often a reflection of mental disorganization. Stoic philosophy invites simplicity not for aesthetics, but for clarity. When you eliminate the excess around you, it makes room to breathe better inside. A crowded closet of clothes you don't even wear, a drawer with useless objects, a bookcase that only accumulates dust, all of this occupies emotional space as well. Try cleaning. Choose a corner of the house, however small. Detach from something that has no more function or meaning. You will realize that by throwing something out, it is releasing more than an object, it is releasing energy. And this feeling of lightness is addictive. This external practice also strengthens the sense of internal control. Organize your routine, your priorities, your workspace. All this communicates to your mind that you are in charge. And when chaos is organized outside, negative and anxious thoughts also tend to decrease. No need to become a radical minimalist, but it is worth adopting what I call emotional minimalism, keeping around only what nourishes, what has the purpose, which brings peace, both in your things and your thoughts, commitments and people. The rest, with love, can be let go. Think of your day. How many unnecessary decisions do you make for lack of organization? How many minutes loses looking for something that should take place right? All this confusion tires. Organizing is not vanity. It is self-care. It's like preparing the terrain so that tranquility flourishes. And when you start living with more order, you realize how it reduces the desire to compare with others. After all, when your inner house is at peace, the success of others is no longer a threat. This constant and unfair comparison will be our next point of reflection. Unnecessary comparisons. You've already taken the feed rolling and thinking, wow, so-and-so is so ahead, or why isn't my life like that too? The even silent comparisons run self-esteem as water that drips nonstop. Worst of all, we almost always compare our complete reality with the idealized cut of the other. Stoic philosophy teaches compare yourself only with yourself. Your real progress is about who you were yesterday, not to whom others appear to be today. Because no one puts the backstage. No one shows bad nights, hidden failures, doubts that also pursue them. Gratitude is a powerful antidote. When you focus on what you have instead of what your mind changes frequency. A good exercise is writing down every day 3 things you are grateful. They don't have to be great achievements. It can be a hot coffee, a sincere hug, a moment of silence. This trains the look at what really matters. You do not need to run at the same speed as the others. Each has a terrain, a way, a time. To compare is to forget that you have a unique purpose and it cannot be measured with the rule of others. When you understand this, the need to prove something disappears. Another important point: comparison is often fueled by digital noise. Therefore, taking care of what you consume on social networks is also a way of taking care of your self-esteem. Follow who inspires you, not who presses you. And remember, you can admire without wanting to copy. Live as those who walk with conscience, looking forward, but also in. Ask yourself, what really accomplishes me? What makes sense to me, regardless of the opinion of others? These silent questions have more transformation power than any external applause. And in stopping comparing yourself, accepting and celebrating who you are, a rare kind of freedom is born. A peace that does not depend on validation. A comfortable silence that does not require masks. And perhaps that is precisely where the true power of silence lives. And now, after this silent journey inside yourself, tell me with sincerity, what is still taking up space in there that should have been released? What weight do you carry without realizing it? What habit, person, or thought is preventing you from living lightly? Don't wait for the next storm to act. Start today with small gestures. Eliminate in silence. Organize with love. Silence the noise around you and listen more from the inside. Life does not have to be noisy to be significant. Sometimes the greatest transformation comes with a simple choice of not reacting. What will you choose to keep? And what, with courage and peace, will you let go? Make these questions a day companions. Reread this content whenever you feel that the world is too high and you need to hear your own voice again. And if it has touched your heart in any way, inspired you, or made you think differently, subscribe to the channel, activates notifications, and comes with us for more content like that. Because peace sometimes is not what you add, but what you finally have the courage to eliminate.